We are starting square number 5 of your composition cube. For this square, we will be creating a newspaper or magazine or calendar image collage that fits a color scheme. You'll see a little bit later on in the video that I choose a triadic color scheme, so I've already picked up my magazine photos. The first step of this square is to grab a piece of tracing paper and trace your image onto the tracing paper. This makes it easier for us to figure out how to cut out shapes from the magazine images without having to redraw our project or without having to cut up our original project. We're basically making this stencil so we can cut it apart and use it to trace onto the magazine or calendar images that we're going to use for this square. Once you have your design traced onto your tracing paper square, we're going to use this tracing paper square as a template to cut out calendar images or magazine images to collage into our next square. So I picked my color scheme. I'm gonna stick with purple, orange, and green, which is that triadic color scheme, the triad that I used in my watercolor section. So I'm gonna stick with that to create a little bit of unity in my artwork. So I need to kind of decide what section I want to be what color here. So I think it would be, I'm gonna need a background, and then I'm going to need some, I'm gonna need a different color probably for these shapes here. So I think for my background, I've got green, I've got orange, and I've got purple. I think I'm gonna do the green for the background. And I think I'm gonna make this part, this negative space here, and this kind of mossy green over here, just to add a little bit of variety. And then I already have this idea of this space right here being these kind of like really neat rocks. So I'm gonna start with that. So what you're gonna do is cut out your stencil. This is actually tracing paper, I misspoke. And then you have two options here. You can either draw on the front of the paper. I think this is easiest, especially if you are trying to find a specific area of your image to use. Or you can flip your stencil over and put it on the back. I think I'm just gonna do it right side up on the front. So I'm gonna place this where I want it. And then I'm just gonna very carefully with a ballpoint pen or a fine Sharpie marker, one of the really skinny Sharpie markers, I'm just going to go along the outside of my little shape. And you'll notice that I didn't completely cut the edges off mine, and that's okay. I'm gonna start with this and then go from there. All right, so then I'm gonna cut this out. And then I tried to cut this as neatly as I could. I'm gonna separate this from the paper it was glued down to. And I cut it neatly so that I don't get all of the pen on there. Okay, so there's one. I could use my pen now to kind of mark where the corner of this design is. So there, and over here, it's like right here and right here. All right, so there is shape number 1. So next I need to figure out these probably. For these, I'm going to use the orange of this tree, of these beautiful trees. So I need to go ahead and cut all of these shapes out. I'm going to try to keep the background of this kind of intact if possible. And I also need to keep this piece here so I can use that to trace the background if I need to. So I'm going to try to keep this in this background in one piece so I can use that to figure out what shape this needs to be. Once I have these 4 shapes cut out, I'm going to go ahead and trace them onto my paper. And then I'm going to cut them out. All right, and then to create a little unity, I think I'm gonna do orange right here as well. This time though, I think I'm going to trace my shape down here just to give it a little bit of variety. For this shape here, I'm gonna do purple again. And I'm actually gonna do this part of the sky. All right, that leaves this little piece here and the background. So now I'm gonna get my green. I'm gonna kind of move this around a little bit just to make sure I'm gonna have enough green to make this work. I might have to get a little creative with how I do the background, but I'm gonna use this kind of mossy green for this shape here. All right, so now I'm left with the background. So I need to figure out how I'm going to make this work with the green that I have here. So I think what I might need to do is actually break my little stencil into 2 pieces. It's probably easiest to break it right here. So now I will hopefully have enough space to make these 2 pieces my background, which I do. Awesome. I'm not going to worry too much about cutting this negative space out because I can just overlap my orange pieces with that piece there. The next step is going to be to glue all of these things down. I'm going to need to arrange them and get them into the right places first. So that's what you'll see me do next. All right, there you go. So once you have all the pieces glued down, make sure any corners are completely stuck down. There's no big chunks of glue on your page. You will put all your materials away. When you can throw away any of the tracing paper. And then scraps like this, like if it's big enough to actually use, I would like you to keep it. Scraps like this, not super useful. There's words on it. I mean, it's okay, but I would rather you just toss these little pieces, save these bigger pieces, and try to keep the counter as organized as possible.